çok iyi. Eelkoo benim bir haftalık eski bir dostum. Gerçekten çok yakın bir dostum. Ancak bir haftalık bir dostum. Kendisi Hollandalı bir tasarımcı. Londra'da kendi tasarım ofisi var. Ayakkabıdan çok kavramsal, çok spekülatif, çok heyecan verici yerleştirmelere kadar çok geniş perspektifte tasarım yapan ve bundan çok da iyi kazanan bir tasarım. Sabah biz Eelkoo'yu şaşırttık. Albert'i de şaşırttık. Yani İnegöl'ü görünce her ikisi de şaşırdılar. Ama şimdi sıra İnegöl'ün şaşırmasında. Çünkü Eelkoo'da, Albert'te büyük ihtimal İnegöl'ü şaşırtacak bir bakış açısıyla geldiler. So, I mean, you were surprised in the morning to see the mobilium, inegöl,
yes, it's huge.
And now it's their turn to be surprised. I mean, with a very new look at creativity in industry. Everybody needs new perspectives. The whole world needs some kind of a new perspective. And probably we are all here to, I mean, look for, to search for the industry, the designers, the young designers, the industry here is here for a new way of looking at creativity, a new way of looking at future. And where do you stand as a designer? Or how do you consider yourself, a designer or artist? Maybe I can also... Çok basit şunu soruyorum. Eelkoo'nun işlerini gördüğünüzde böyle bir ofis başında oturmuş, yüzlerce ürün çıkaran bir tasarımcı değil. Çok spekülatif, çok özgün işler göreceksiniz. Kendisini nasıl gördüğünü soruyorum. Bir sanatçı olarak, tasarım olarak. Çünkü çok özgün bir noktada duruyor kendisi.
Yeah, I see myself a little bit working in between different areas because I was trained as a product designer, also in accessories, and then by chance I made an object that I'll show later, shoes. I was trained as a shoemaker as well, and I went to Royal College of Art in London after studying accessories and products and jewelry. And I swore never to make shoes again, but somehow I kept on producing shoes initially, amongst other things. My approach has always been a bit spiritual, a bit aimed at looking for form and meaning in things. And design for me was, because it's a product of everyday life, it's something you use, which is much closer to you than art, I would say, in the sense that it affects your daily life. So for me, these objects are full of meaning and full of possibilities to explore things that relate to design. I think being trained as a product designer, I think that for me, product is about ideology. It's about the materializations of a system, of a large system, of a structure. My interest always has been subjectivity within that. What's the human agency? That's it.
That's it.
The answer is basically I see myself as a combination of both. A trained designer who rolled into a fashion context.
Yeah, maybe we can focus on the subjectivity issue because, for example, we had a workshop and we told the students, forget your subject, forget being an individual, and become cooperative so that you can do many things by combining your potential. But, for example, in your case, you seem like that you have, for example, mentioned about ideology, and also you said about subjectivity. So, how do you start the project? For example, a conventional designer usually looks at the market, looks at a user, defines the user, and then, okay, this is what should be designed for that type of a market or for that type of a user. But in your case, and maybe some of your works should be shared with the audience, so we should have a better idea of who you are talking to.
This is what we described just now. I work in the design art. I see myself descriptive of the arts, prescriptive of design, so how you use an object. And for me, a fashionable element, for me fashion is something really that's for children, and style is something more which is for everybody. But for me fashion is the language of the everyday. That's all it is. Let's see here. Shall I talk about one object?
So, for example, do you call it a shoe? Is it the word that you...
I call it footwear, because you wear it on the foot, you see. I think this is typically, I do work for clients as well. This is particularly, I always have personal interests, and my interests are always in the margins of things, and the margins of the systems that I described. I think I've got some examples a bit earlier. Yeah, there. For example, from the left, you've got this in Russia, where they have no money and they're restoring their own objects. They've got a really poetic way, I think, of restoration and creating new typologies of objects. I find it very interesting, sort of the leftovers. Another example is if you take Orozco, which is an artist, you see there with the pool table top left as well as the table tennis. How can you make a very small change into the existing typology, and then you completely change the meaning of it? Now, you take away, let's say, the functionality of an object, but by doing this, you ask yourself questions, and the audience gets a question, why the hell does this person do that? Obviously, because they can't use it. Now this opens up a whole dialogue, let's say, of possibilities from which you can develop ideas. So, in a way, that's how I look at any object, and I always try to find these objects within film, within art, within design, within everything. And then I develop a personal dialogue with myself of interest.
But how do you make a living out of it?
Oh, living? Well, part of my practice is academic, which is a luxury, so I can ask myself these questions and I'm being paid for it. That's half of the week. And the other half, I get commissions as well from the cultural sector. Sometimes companies come to me and they're asking for how can I work with their manufacturing processes, for example, in a different way. So if you ask me, I find it horrible American words, unique selling point. What my unique selling point is basically looking and finding difference within an existing framework, and that ranges from fashion to sometimes even interior things. And then when I make my own work, I've got my own dialogue. This was just an imaginary person I came up with, somebody who was imbalanced, and how can I make the person feel their body again? It's nothing for anybody of the audience interesting, let's say, how that happens, but it gives me a framework in order to produce something. That generally I've got a big box or I put it on a shelf, that's where it is, and then I get approached or somebody in this case came to the studio and said, this is interesting, it was fashion designers for a catwalk show. And they said, would you want to do something like this? And I said, well, why don't we use this to put it on the catwalk show? To basically generate attention for their products, which is how they work. So that's where this one is. So something that starts with something very personal. I believe that the personal things, everybody is unique, and if you bring your personal elements out, you are contributing to something unique often. That's my point of view.
And you mentioned fashion a lot.
Well, yeah.
I also personally think that fashion is a kind of a key element to understanding industry should make connection with this concept of fashion. The automotive industry, I think, totally related to fashion. You seem like to be involved very much with it. So, what would you suggest to, for example, the furniture industry and the students of design? How should they relate to fashion? I know some people have a reaction to that trend.
Yeah. Being trained as a product designer, first of all, open yourself to it, because most product designers that I know, I don't know how it is here, they're like, oh, fashion, we're better than that. We make things that are eternal. We do things that are, like architects, I think more important. But if I walk in and I must say I thought a little bit like that too, mine. I changed brands. But when you walk on the Milan Furniture Fair, for me it is a catwalk what you see. It's just that the chairs don't move, but the people move around the objects. It's the other way around. In fashion is just, let's call it the ripple in the sea, it goes out very quickly. But some things stay and they affect everything.
But the audience is like the models in the catwalk around
Well,
the objects.
in Milan, I think so. I don't see a difference. I can still, with my friends, most of them are product designers, they still won't believe me, but I just laugh. I mean, for me there's no difference. This object is also the one that got me out of that world because of it, funny enough.
Okay, I think you took other steps, for example, like...
This one is another commission, completely not wearable shoes, as you can see. There was a fetishism in fashion, Biennale in the Netherlands, and they approached me to come up with a performance for the opening of their event. The show was called, and also a new shoe for the shoe part of the exhibition. Well, the theme is clear, fetishism, sexuality, so I wanted to play with the classic high-heeled red shoe, which also has a nice reference to the story of the shoe. I don't know if you know it. The girl that puts on the shoe can't stop dancing. In other words, she's given in to her desire and she can't stop moving.
So the performance is also involved.
It's a performance, yeah. I forgot to record it. It's very silly. I thought somebody was recording it. So basically, you put the shoes on and I work with the dancer because it's such a fragile ballerina person. Initially, she walks as if her feet are broken, which gives a very cruel impression. But she manages to hold on to these huge stairs over there, and she poses and she walks a little bit, which gives a very beautiful view. So in this sense, the object is just purely a performative piece about the content, really. So this is a context, another context that I'm working. How I've done it is just leather. Basically, the tip of the show, the tip of the toe within footwear is always a phallic symbol, considered to be from the Middle Ages onwards. So the only thing I did, I displaced it basically and put it on the front of the toe. A very old-fashioned trick.
So like fashion, performance and show is also a part of your work.
Yeah, I think I see my work as performative. This is the most extreme, most visual, most direct one, performance. An object can also perform by giving a little bit extra, by being interactive with the user, for example, by getting somebody out of their comfort zone, by you can do it by association. I think putting a lot of things in the object so it becomes a little bit in itself.
In fact, every design completes itself with the human being when it's combined, right?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, and what you can play with them is, I think a lot of design, and it should be really in a commercial context, is about comfort and comforting somebody. So in that sense, it's an emotional extension of the person, but that also opens up possibilities to make somebody uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And therefore,
and no one gets bored when excited, right?
Yes, that's right. And I think an industry and every industry needs questioning, needs critical things. This one, for example, is if you ask them, yeah, but how do you apply that to a really commercial context? Well, that's what this is. It had to cost €35 retail. The sherry drinking, dog walking woman at 5 o'clock was previously.
So what are the cheapest items you have designed?
I think this is the cheapest.
This is the cheapest.
€35 is pretty cheap, right?
Yeah. When compared to the others?
Yes. Yeah. I think the range is from €35 to £8,000.
£8,000.
Again, these are more design gallery objects. So So this is just only, you could work with surfaces, because I don't know if you know how to make these things, with the aluminium molds. So you can only work with surfaces and change very limited elements within the design in order to change the design really. And so I decided to work with, can you see that actually? This little robots and some other references.
I've seen the original one with the red button.
Yeah,
So
yeah. You can't see it.
there's a correlation between price and use. I mean, for example, shoe is such a utilitarian product, but for example, price, probably the most expensive shoe you design is the one which is the impossible to use.
Yeah, because what I do with those often is sometimes these shoes, like the stills, the wooden ones, people know them, and then in the end they can become like collectibles basically.
So do you recommend the furniture industry to design furnitures that are not usable if they want to sell?
Yes, sometimes. No, for the industry. For the industry, no, but not if you want to sell. That's the thing. You can. It can be very useful for advertising.
Yeah.
You know, you make an object which has a particular story, and you sell the rest of the range on the back of an element within that. That's an element of fashion which I find interesting in haute couture, for example. You experiment with ideas, you experiment, push the ideas to an extreme, put it in a completely immersive environment of the catwalk show, or the film these days as well, and you sell the back catalogue of the collection on that.
So what's the element of value, for example, in fashion?
Well, first of all, I think fashion, for me, there's clothing and there's fashion. As I said, fashion is for children.
Yeah.
The language of the every day, I said it's the value. You mean the commercial value of retail, high street, or haute couture?
I mean, the reason we buy and consume.
Oh, the reason for that is.
Yeah.
Oh, it's got to do with the eye, isn't it? This theory that you get born and after 3 years, I think, you feel a bit naked. And you have to fill in what your eye is, and you're going to do that by purchasing objects and creating somehow personality.
Eye is bigger than the stomach, you say.
Yes, yeah, and I think it's mainly capitalist tool to generate more money to it. To keep the economy going, isn't it? These are politics. Well, this is the last of this initial first ones. Again, this is how, as I said before, how you can take the function completely away from the object and have it become through references, using different things that people know. There's a leg, for example, there's a shoe, there's a bell jar with some dead body in it. This is what the most extreme art, let's say. Again, funny enough, I think all the pieces that are art are sold, funny enough. So you think that you never sell these things. This is an object for the interior, which I also do, interior accessories. Again, initially I made it handmade, sculpted it in clay. Talking about human agency, that's my way of using an image that exists and putting agency back in it by sculpting it. And then I was very busy for a week or two to erase every human trace of it. Made a mold of it. This is an object that I've sold all over the place, mostly in New York, all of those places, London, galleries. It's a rubber material. I really like rubber because it debunks, or it makes parody of existing forms and shapes. On the wall, nice as well. Then another kind of commission is Bloomberg, the analysts from New York. They also have an to use their waste, basically. And then you do a space or you do an object for 1 year. And they gave me one room, a meeting room, and I thought, you know, these people when they work there, they can have coffee and there's literally a green light that goes on, and then when the green light turns red, like a traffic light, they've got to go back to work, which I thought was quite unbelievable.
Very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I feel very uncomfortable and I get very nervous in this kind of environment. So yeah, just to show a bit how I work, because I knew there was also going to be students there. So I think just very playful, quick sketching. This one was because it was a very brief project, 20 objects, 20 French pieces in 1 month making, 2 weeks designing. There was quick turnover. You could get TV screens, the pellets, all kinds of objects. Very quick drawing. This is the mess in the studio that I went to make it. And these are the objects. The things in the middle are interactive, so that they've got airy bits, moving animation. These patterns are routed in. Very tactile, very quick. I didn't make any technical drawings. I just took out the material and worked by eye. That's the idea to work.
Including the furniture?
Yes, because I thought the approach was quick. I wanted to think of myself as a primitive, being dumped in that space with furniture, with wood, and I had no measures apart from a hammer and issue or power drill and a saw. That was it. To emphasize the human element of it, because the computer.
Is it something permanent or temporary?
This was there for a year.
For a year.
Yeah. In the evening, it's great. I could only go in one time. Very strict security. So the lights give a nice little glow. They're a bit like little animals. They liked it. People that were working there. Should I talk about that kind of thing?
Yes, I think it's time.
Okay. So then sometimes I also do more conceptual objects, basically. I think of every work that I do as conceptual.
That was the boring part. Now we can.
All right. So I think that, you know, if you have to describe my work, I do work very physical, but I think of my own work initially as being conceptual simply because it's conceived in a mind first. It's an idea, and then I find the material, then I find the appropriate thing to it. I think that's inherited from the product design.
Background.
Way of thinking, yes. And I thought I needed a narrative to explore the psychology of using something, because looking at something is one thing and using it is another thing. It's also really aesthetic. So I was thinking, I like psycho-fiction, so what happens is we use things that are human, basically. So one of the things I did some research in it, I don't want to bore you with that, but anyway, societal depression has become a major illness, as we all know. And what we do, we go shopping, which is great, and I like it too, but then the next day you feel a bit, feel the same again. So I thought, how can you actually play with design? The idea of design to make life better, which is design for you.
Ask something, because I mean, we were talking about how to run a session, and you design. And for example, when you look at the description of design, it's making something preferred instead of the existing one, or transforming something existing into a preferred one.
Yeah.
But when I look at your words, I mean, it's rather than fulfilling such needs or some preferences, these words start to become statements of a kind of a personal statement to the society. So, what would you suggest? How do you see yourself in such a designer role? And, for example, what would you say about this issue of stating something or actually acting as an operator to fulfill needs, especially to the students?
Well, I think
If you have something to say, okay, state it through design. Can you say that?
Yeah, well, I think these kind of works coming out a bit more design pieces for designers. You know, that they take their reference from. When I was trained by Anthony Dunn and Verdiği, who were about this critical design thing, which, so we were thinking about these things all the time. I see myself more in these things as an agent provocateur, let's say. So you take the form of the thing you critique and you subvert or pervert it, or, you know, there's three techniques how you can do that.
So design as a tool for industry can turn out to be a tool for provocation as well.
Yes, and I feel...
Or expression,
yes,
like art.
Yes, exactly. And for me, so that's the artist element in what I do. Why I choose product design or objects, basically, that can be used is because I feel a painting hangs on the wall, a sculpture hangs in a space, and I think the world's now so laden with objects and loaded with pieces that we use every single day, that is much more personal and much more direct to work with an object, a functional object, than an art piece in some cases.
I'm waiting for...
So, I mean, you can ask yourself why do you want to do these things. It's a form of communication. There's humor in it as well, right? So I wouldn't take it all too serious. It's meant serious, but it's also...
Yeah, how serious is design, for example? I could ask, how serious is design?
Exactly, that's also the question. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I needed a protagonist. He lives there in those buildings. In London, there's many of those. It makes you only depressed by looking at it. Imagine being actually living in them. They go to work like that. Now, how does he feel? He doesn't feel good, right? He feels a bit like that man. What am I going to do? Am I going to go down the hill and I'm going to jump? So what's he going to do? Now, I was thinking, how could an object fulfill a therapeutic function, hypothetically? How could you make an object that needs a bit of skill to be used, you know, as a game-wise, let's say? An element of deep play involved, is what they call it, jumping off a cliff. It gives you a sense of being alive again, of touching on the self in psychological terms. I was interested in designing this kind of thing. And this is how I work then in my sketchbook a little bit. You know, I explore and I make collages and I dream a little bit. Obviously, this was never to be made.
Yeah, that would be a question. How do you work?
Well, I started exactly like this. Collage. I look at things, I cut them up. Sometimes I make an object, like over here. I wanted to experience the tipping point. On the top left is one of these things that you use to train your abdominals to look good. And I thought, how can you, I bought one, and I was playing with, destroying the mechanism a bit, seeing how it worked if you fall forward. How does it feel to get over the tipping point? Then I made a lo-fi simulation machine. I went to Las Vegas and couldn't believe it, so I went back again and I thought, how can I make
Is it prototype?
Yeah, which one?
This one.
The one at
the one on the left.
On the left. Yeah, well, I didn't put the box on my head, but I used the object itself, yes. It's painful. So I didn't continue with this. So these are all experiments. Then I've done one in which this wasn't a world project at the time, we done this is basically only to explore the process, like what you've done with the tables. It's like at which point do I give my trust away to somebody else, and how does it feel to get over the tipping point? So that's the element that I took further from it. How could you employ that in the interior? I thought it was interesting that people in terms of psychological needs sometimes refer to behaving like an animal, because of lycanthropy, for example. And in Israel they've got this thing called Feldenkrais, in which you use moving like animals to emphasize growth in psychological terms, which is actually a serious thing. So bird people were more about, this one was how far can you push the exterior out? And again, this is an accessory because it went on to a larger structure. You come back home, you think I'm going to sit over there, and I push it on the exact angle that your body thinks they're going to fall, but they're actually not falling. I tried it out myself, it's very scary.
Now I can ask the inegöl furniture industry if they can think about producing mass-produced, bird people products.
I think they're falling asleep.
Ürünü gördüyseniz insanların bir kuş gibi bir binada durmalarını sağlayan bir tasarım, bir düşünce. Şimdi biz de merak ediyoruz. Acaba İnegöl'de bunu seri üretime dönüştürmeyi düşünen bir mobilyacı çıkabilir mi? Binaların kenarına tutuyorsunuz, akşam eve gelip oraya insanlar tünüyor ve kuş nasıl olmakmış diye deneyimliyorlar. Zor mu? Evet, birazdan Fahrettin Bey, birazdan da İnegöl'ü de dinleyeceğiz ama değil mi? Zor mu diyorsunuz? Zor. He's a colleague, he's a designer from inegöl, so I asked if they think about mass producing your idea in inegöl.
Have I got a chance?
But he says no way.
I've come all this way, and there's nothing back home, nothing here. This again, same thing, accessory objects.
I get some signs.
So the accessory objects, it takes some skill to be used. How can you play with this thing? That's the thing that's inside here. Basically taking the topology of a walking thing and playing with the way it sits in the parties. Then how do you bring it back to footwear? How can you live desire out in a public space? Basically to create a sense of relief, for using objects. And then I thought, if you're looking for release, if you're looking for this kind of, bring yourself into a more sensitive, desensitized situation, you still need an object to buy an object. What if you just leave the interior and you actually start using objects which are already in the interior and create an experience for yourself? So I thought maybe I should make a manual, this is a book that we brought out. Emergency games, because in emergency, how can you change the environment in a low-cost kind of way? Using boiling alive. So you need two people and two pens. You put your face in it, and the one that you switch, of course, the heat on, and the one that comes out first loses. A fighting machine, your kitchen utensils, you have them spin from the fan. You can increase the level of difficulty by adding a small stool right over there. Electrocution. These are these nice little things that you can use to train your abdominals whilst continuing eating and doing nothing. Now, this is a very nice family game because it contracts your muscles. If you have plenty of them, you can use it like this. And the one that goes down, of course, first use this. Free fall is a bit more poetic. Close your eyes and use the fan and imagine you're falling. This one is indeed very relaxing. I've tried it. Crash, I don't know about here, but in Western Europe, lots of the middle-class homes have this glass panel standing along the side of the house to be used for a shed or something like that. If you use your swimming goggles, you can copy a crash. And the last one is King Kong. I'm sure that everybody has that experience. Creating New York with all the magazines and then smashing it apart is a great way of revitalizing yourself. Right.
Again, of high schools, universities.
Yes. And that's the end of that.
Yeah, we should thank Eelkoo and İşte Londra'da Hollandalı bir tasarımcı böyle düşünüyor, böyle çalışıyor. Yani kafasında neler olduğunu görmesi gerekiyordu. Eelkoo da bunun için buradaydı. Soru cevap için hakkımız var mı? Gözüm ilerleyi arıyor.
2-3 soru da.
Evet, 2-3 soru alabiliyoruz.
When you look at your products or designs, you are a radical designer, but how can you accept you to society for your life? Okay. Tamam. Radikal bir tasarım anlayışınız var ve kendinizi bu şekilde nasıl kabul ettiniz? Şimdi kendinizi tasarımınızı kabul etmek gerçekten zor.
But we're also accepted as a designer by society and industry, by
Yes.
circles of design.
Yes, because every circus needs a clown. I think that's it. It's a very honorable mention.
And I think you clownize the circles as well. In return, you're clowning the circles as well. In return.
Yes. No more questions.
In Dutch.
In Dutch. Okay. No, I'm not going to do Dutch. What is the reason that you went to London? Because as everyone knows, Holland is really successful in designing and design experience.
Yeah.
So I was curious about it.
For me, I already done my BA in Holland, of course. For me, I find I make work that's slightly different. In the Netherlands, it's one method of thinking, one method of working. At least it was at the time. It needs to a little bit. And besides that, I just wanted to go from where I was born. I wanted to explore a different city. Royal College for me was great because there's so many different ways of working. I worked with people that were designing coffee machines. I could never design perhaps a coffee machine myself. I know experienced somebody with that process. Completely different ways of thinking, from different cultures, different races, everything. It was a more wider approach to it. I felt at the time than I suspected it to be in the Netherlands. Therefore, I think it's very good for BA, way of thinking, design way of thinking. I still think it's very good for that. But for my master's, which is I think when you look for something you would want to develop on top of that knowledge, for me London was more interesting.
Thank you.
Okay. We thank Eelkoo, we thank everybody, and we leave the floor